I never thought my best friend would try to destroy my marriage. But here we are, let me back up. I'm 29, my husband is 31, and we've been together for years. I met my best friend Sarah when I was 11, right after my family moved to a new country. My sister-in-law introduced us and we clicked immediately. Through childhood and into adulthood, we stayed close. We share some friends now, but we each have our own circles too. It works. I work in an office from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon with a half-hour break. Sometimes I grab a second breakfast at a cafe near my job. Sometimes I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office. Every now and then I have to travel for work, go to another city. I mention it to Sarah casually, no big deal. Last week I was supposed to travel on Wednesday, but Tuesday night a red alert came out about the weather. Dangerous flooding expected the next day. My work trip got canceled, so I stayed home with our 2-year-old. My husband left at 6 in the morning to make sure his business was closed and to put up flood protection. By 7:30 he was back making breakfast. The rain didn't even start until 1 in the afternoon. We didn't go out until Friday. Saturday morning, Sarah and I have the same gym class. After class, she told me we needed to talk in private. We went out to my car and she looked serious. She said, "On Wednesday I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." I froze. For a second my heart stopped, but then I remembered Wednesday. I was home. My husband was home. We were together all day. Our son was with us. There was no way. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. She confirmed 3 times. I asked what time. She said around 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked if she was 100% sure. She launched into this whole description, my husband making out with a gorgeous Barbie blonde woman in his car. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there thinking, this was my best friend. Why would she say this? I wasn't angry yet, just confused. I told her I needed to think and I drove home. At home, I told my husband everything. He was shocked. He said, "I never left the house Wednesday. You were here." I knew that. But still, the idea that someone would make up something like that, it felt unreal. I called Sarah. I said, "I need you to be honest with me. Are you absolutely sure it was Wednesday?" She got defensive. She said, "I know what I saw. I'm trying to protect you." I said, "I was home with my husband and my son all day Wednesday. The red alert kept us inside. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't see anyone." Silence. Then she said, "Maybe it was another day. You said Wednesday. You confirmed 3 times." She started stammering. She said maybe she got the day wrong. Maybe it was Tuesday, but I knew Tuesday too. My husband was at work and I was at the office. And our son was at daycare. She couldn't have seen him with a woman. I asked her why she would lie. She said she wasn't lying, she was mistaken. But the way she described it, the detail, the confidence, that wasn't a mistake, that was deliberate. I thought about our friendship. We've been close for 18 years. She's been there for me through everything. But this was sabotage. She wanted me to believe my husband was cheating. She wanted to break us up. Why? I've been racking my brain. Did she want me to be a single mom so we could hang out more? Did she have a crush on my husband? Did she want my life? I don't know, and maybe I never will. I told her I needed space. She kept texting, apologizing, saying she just wanted to protect me, but I can't unhear what she said. I can't forget how sure she was. I'm not sure I can ever trust her again. My husband is furious. He wants me to cut her off completely. Part of me agrees. But part of me is still stuck on the why. Why would my best friend try to destroy my marriage? I keep replaying every conversation we've had over the past year looking for signs. I don't find any. That's the scariest part. For now, I'm not responding to her messages. I'm focusing on my family, but I know this isn't over. I have to figure out what to do next. That was one kind of betrayal, but what I'm about to tell you now, another kind. Something that started a few years before that, something that still haunts me. It was about my husband and a friend and a baby. Let me tell you that story. I never thought my best friend would try to destroy my marriage. But here we are, let me back up. I'm 29, my husband is 31, and we've been together for years. I met my best friend Sarah when I was 11, right after my family moved to a new country. My sister-in-law introduced us and we clicked immediately. Through childhood and into adulthood, we stayed close. We share some friends now, but we each have our own circles too. It works. I work in an office from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon with a half-hour break. Sometimes I grab a second breakfast at a cafe near my job. Sometimes I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office. Every now and then I have to travel for work, go to another city. I mention it to Sarah casually, no big deal. Last week I was supposed to travel on Wednesday, but Tuesday night a red alert came out about the weather. Dangerous flooding expected the next day. My work trip got canceled, so I stayed home with our 2-year-old. My husband left at 6 in the morning to make sure his business was closed and to put up flood protection. By 7:30 he was back making breakfast. The rain didn't even start until 1 in the afternoon. We didn't go out until Friday. Saturday morning, Sarah and I have the same gym class. After class, she told me we needed to talk in private. We went out to my car and she looked serious. She said, "On Wednesday I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." I froze. For a second my heart stopped. But then I remembered Wednesday. I was home. My husband was home. We were together all day. Our son was with us. There was no way. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. She confirmed 3 times. I asked what time. She said around 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked if she was 100% sure. She launched into this whole description, my husband making out with a gorgeous Barbie blonde woman in his car. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there thinking, this was my best friend. Why would she say this? I wasn't angry yet, just confused. I told her I needed to think and I drove home. At home, I told my husband everything. He was shocked. He said, I never left the house Wednesday. You were here. I knew that. But still, the idea that someone would make up something like that, it felt unreal. I called Sarah. I said, I need you to be honest with me. Are you absolutely sure it was Wednesday? She got defensive. She said, I know what I saw. I'm trying to protect you. I said, I was home with my husband and my son all day Wednesday. The red alert kept us inside. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't see anyone. Silence. Then she said, maybe it was another day. You said Wednesday. You confirmed 3 times. She started stammering. She said maybe she got the day wrong. Maybe it was Tuesday. But I knew Tuesday too. My husband was at work and I was at the office. And our son was at daycare. She couldn't have seen him with a woman. I asked her why she would lie. She said she wasn't lying. She was mistaken. But the way she described it, the detail, the confidence, that wasn't a mistake. That was deliberate. I thought about our friendship. We've been close for 18 years. She's been there for me through everything. But this was sabotage. She wanted me to believe my husband was cheating. She wanted to break us up. Why? I've been racking my brain. Did she want me to be a single mom so we could hang out more? Did she have a crush on my husband? Did she want my life? I don't know, and maybe I never will. I told her I needed space. She kept texting, apologizing, saying she just wanted to protect me. But I can't unhear what she said. I can't forget how sure she was. I'm not sure I can ever trust her again. My husband is furious. He wants me to cut her off completely. Part of me agrees, but part of me is still stuck on the why. Why would my best friend try to destroy my marriage? I keep replaying every conversation we've had over the past year looking for signs. I don't find any. That's the scariest part. For now, I'm not responding to her messages. I'm focusing on my family, but I know this isn't over. I have to figure out what to do next. That was one kind of betrayal, but what I'm about to tell you now, another kind. Something that started a few years before that, something that still haunts me. It was about my husband and a friend and a baby. Let me tell you that story. I'm a doctor, emergency medicine. It's been my dream since I was 12 years old. I worked my ass off through med school, residency, and then landing a job at a busy trauma center. My husband, let's call him Mark, is a civil engineer. He's good at his job but doesn't live for it. His real passions are his hobbies, his friends, and me. At least that's what I thought. We got married when I was 28 after dating for 3 years. We were happy. We had our own condo. I was finally hitting my stride at work, getting the tough shifts, earning respect from the attendings. Life was good, but about 14 months ago, Mark started pushing for a baby. He wanted a kid so bad, he'd bring it up at dinner on weekends in bed. We're not getting any younger, he'd say. I want to be a dad before I'm too old to play catch. I didn't want a baby, not then. I was terrified of losing my momentum at work. I'd just been given more responsibility in the ER. I was on track to become a lead physician in a few years. A baby would derail everything. But I was a coward. I didn't tell him that. We'd never really disagreed on anything major before, and I didn't want to start a fight, so I said okay. I convinced myself it wouldn't be a huge sacrifice. I could make it work. Plenty of female doctors have kids. We got pregnant, and I was miserable from day one. The nausea, the fatigue, the brain fog, I hated it. I hated myself for hating it. I started therapy, and my therapist told me I was holding resentment against the baby. She was right. I was more worried about my career than about being a mother. I worked on it. By month 6, I was actually excited. Mark and I were in a better place. My attitude had really hurt him during those first few months, and we'd been fighting a lot. But now we were planning the nursery, picking out names. I felt hopeful. Then at 7 months, I went into labor. Something went wrong. The baby was born still, a little girl. I had complications, severe hemorrhaging. They had to do emergency surgery. When I woke up, the doctor told me that my chances of ever getting pregnant again were incredibly low. Almost zero. I was devastated, but part of me, a dark, guilty part, was also relieved. No more pregnancy, no more sacrifices. I could focus on my career again. I didn't tell anyone that. It felt too awful to admit. Mark was crushed. He cried for weeks. He'd hold the empty nursery and just sit there. I tried to comfort him, but I was also dealing with my own trauma. I went back to work after 2 months. I threw myself into the ER. I thought that would help. It didn't. Mark started pulling away. He'd come home late from work, say he was with friends. I didn't think much of it. I was working long shifts too. But then he started talking about a friend from his gym, a woman named Jenna. He mentioned her at dinner. Jenna says I should start running again. Jenna just got a promotion. Jenna is really into hiking. It was harmless at first. But then one night about a month ago, he sat me down at the kitchen table. He looked nervous but determined. He said, I've been thinking a lot about our situation. About the baby and about what we lost, and I think I have a solution. I thought he was going to suggest adoption or maybe IVF. I was ready to talk about options, but instead he said, Jenna and I have been talking. She's single and she wants to have a baby but doesn't want a relationship. She said she'd be willing to let me impregnate her, and then she'd give the baby to us to raise. I stared at him. What? It's perfect, he said. She's healthy, she's young, she doesn't want the responsibility. We would be the parents, she would just be the carrier. We could have our own biological child. My mouth went dry. You've been talking about this with her. Without me, I didn't want to upset you until I had it worked out, he said. But don't you see, this is the only way we can have a baby that's ours. Medically, you can't carry again, and I don't want to adopt a stranger's kid. I want a child with my blood, and Jenna is willing to help. I felt like I'd been punched. You want to have sex with your friend to get her pregnant? Not sex, he said quickly. Artificial insemination at home with a syringe. It's not cheating, it's a medical procedure. It's still you making a baby with another woman, I said. That's not a medical procedure, that's a baby with another woman, and you expect me to raise it. We would raise it, he said, together as our child, and Jenna would sign away all rights. She doesn't want to be a mother. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've already talked to her about this, you've already planned everything without me. He didn't deny it. He just said, I'm trying to solve our problem. I want a family, and you can't give me one. Those words, you can't give me one, hit me like a scalpel. I got up from the table. I went to the bedroom and shut the door. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. The next morning, I looked up Jenna on Facebook. She was cute with long blonde hair and a big smile. She worked at a yoga studio. I scrolled through her photos. There was one of her and Mark at a hiking trail, arms around each other, posted 3 weeks ago. I called my sister. She told me to ask for a divorce. I called my mom. She said to give him a chance to come to his senses. I called my therapist. She said Mark was grieving in his own way, but that his actions were unacceptable. That night, Mark came home with flowers. He apologized. He said he'd been stupid, that he'd lost perspective. He said he'd block Jenna, cut her off completely, and that we could talk about adoption or surrogacy, anything I wanted. He even said he'd quit his job if it meant he'd never see her again. I wanted to believe him. I loved him, but something had broken. He'd gone behind my back. He'd planned an entire future with another woman without even telling me. He'd made me feel like a failure because my body couldn't do what he wanted. I told him I needed time. He slept on the couch for a week. I went to work, did my shifts, came home, and sat in silence. I kept thinking about that conversation at the kitchen table, his voice so sure, you can't give me one. Maybe he was right, maybe I couldn't give him a baby, but that didn't mean he had the right to go find another woman to do it for him, not without me. I still don't know what I'm going to do. Part of me wants to leave, part of me wants to try to fix it, but every time I look at him, I see Jenna. I see that photo and I hear those words. I never thought my husband would go behind my back like that. I never thought he'd try to make a baby with another woman, but here we are, and that's not even the worst betrayal I've heard of. I found my husband in bed with his ex-wife at our son's birthday party, but that was only the beginning. Let me set the scene. I'm 27, he's 37. We've been married for 3 years, together for 6. His name is Peter and he's bisexual. I've always known that and I've never had a problem with it. His ex-wife Allison, she's 37 too, was never a threat to me, or so I thought. We have a 7-year-old son, Jack, who we adopted after we got married. I love that kid like he's my own blood. He's mine, but Peter's family has always been a problem. They're homophobic, his mom especially. She never approved of our marriage. She'd always make comments at holidays, tell Peter he should get back together with Allison, that he was just going through a phase. I ignored it because Peter always assured me he was done with her, that she was just a mistake from his past. 2 weeks ago, it was Jack's birthday. We decided to celebrate at Peter's parents' house in their hometown, about 2 hours away. I was nervous, but Jack wanted to see his cousins, so I agreed. The party was in the backyard, balloons, cake, all the kids running around. I was trying to have a good time. Then his mom, my mother-in-law, decides it would be a brilliant idea to invite Allison. She just shows up in the middle of the party unannounced. I saw her walk through the gate and my stomach dropped, but I didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday. So I stayed quiet. I spent the whole time with Jack playing tag, opening presents, keeping him distracted. When it was time to cut the cake, I noticed Peter and Allison were gone. I asked around. No one had seen them. I went inside the house. I checked the living room, the kitchen, then I went upstairs. I found them in Peter's old childhood bedroom. They were taking their clothes off. I stood in the doorway for what felt like an hour. I saw her bra strap, his belt unbuckled. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just turned around, walked back downstairs, and went back to the party. I cut the cake myself. I sang happy birthday with Jack. I opened presents. I smiled. About an hour later, when people were starting to leave, Peter and Allison came back downstairs. Peter found me in the kitchen. He pulled me aside and said, "You shouldn't have cut the cake without me. That was disrespectful." I looked at him. I said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." He went pale. He didn't deny it. He just stared. I took Jack, put him in the car, and drove to the hotel we were staying at. I didn't say a word to Peter. I got Jack into bed, read him a story, and then I sat in the bathroom and called my sister. I was shaking. She told me to leave him. I didn't know what to do. Peter showed up at the hotel an hour later. He knocked on the door. I let him in because I didn't want to make a scene in the hallway. He started crying. He said Allison had cornered him, that she kissed him first, that he was weak. He swore it would never happen again. I didn't believe him. I told him I needed proof. I said, "If you want to save this marriage, you need to cut her off completely, no contact, and I want to see your phone." He handed me his phone. I went through his messages. There were texts between him and Allison going back months. Not just that day, flirty texts, memories of their marriage, plans to meet up. He had been seeing her behind my back for at least 6 months. I felt like I was going to throw up. I asked him why. He said he was confused. He said his family was pressuring him. He said he still loved her. I said, get out. He left. I spent the night alone with Jack. The next morning, I drove us home. I didn't tell Peter where we were going. I just left. Over the next few days, he bombarded me with calls and texts. He said he was sorry. He said he would go to therapy. He said he would never see her again. He even quit his job because she worked at the same office. I started to waver. Part of me wanted to believe him. Then a week later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Allison. I almost hung up, but she said, I need to tell you something. Peter and I have a son. I said, what? She said, a son. He's 14 years old. Peter doesn't know. I never told him, but after what happened at the party, I thought you should know. I didn't believe her at first. I thought she was trying to mess with me, but she sent me a photo, a boy about 14 with Peter's eyes, same jawline. Same smile. I confronted Peter. He denied it. He said Allison was lying, but I pressed him. I asked, when were you married to her? When did you get divorced? He said they were married for 5 years, divorced a year before we met. I did the math. The boy was 14. That meant Allison got pregnant right around the time they got divorced, or maybe before. I demanded a paternity test. Peter resisted, but I told him if he didn't do it, I would file for divorce immediately. He agreed. We took the test. The results came back 2 weeks ago. Peter is the father of a 14-year-old son. For 14 years, Allison had been hiding this from him. She raised the boy alone. And she never told Peter because she knew he would want to be in the kid's life and she didn't want that. She wanted to keep him as a secret weapon, I guess, or maybe she was just cruel. Now Peter is devastated. He's been trying to meet his son, but Allison is fighting him. She says she only told me to hurt him to get revenge for leaving her. She's using the boy as a pawn, and me? I don't know what to do. I'm his husband. I'm supposed to support him. But he cheated on me. He lied to me, and now he has a secret child with his ex-wife. A child he didn't even know about. I told Peter I needed space. He's been sleeping at his brother's house. He calls me every day, crying, begging me to give him another chance. He says he wants us to go to couples therapy. He says he wants to adopt the 14-year-old or at least have a relationship with him. He says I can be part of that, but I don't want to be part of that. I wanted a simple life. A husband, a son, a home. Now I have a cheating spouse, an ex-wife who stalks me, and a teenager I never asked for. I thought I was overreacting when I first saw them in that bedroom. But now I know I was. This is so much worse than I ever imagined. And I don't know if I can ever forgive him. I've been hiding my personal life at work for 9 years, and one nosy coworker decided to expose everything. Let me back up. I've worked at the same office for almost a decade. I'm a private person. I always have been. I believe in a clear separation between work and home. I don't talk about my husband, my kids, my weekends. It's not that I'm ashamed of my life. I love my family. I have twin daughters, a dog, a nice house. I play softball, I kayak, I go mountain climbing. But when I'm at the office, I want to be an adult. I want to talk about projects and deadlines and the weird thing that happened at lunch, not about JoJo Siwa or the newest Kardashian drama. I enjoy the 10 hours a day I get to be something other than mom or wife. I use a shortened version of my name on Facebook, Ali instead of Alexandra. I use my married name. My profile is mostly private, but some of my photos are shared with friends of friends. I figured that was enough. I never expected someone to dig that deep. Enter Melinda. She was hired about a year ago. She's the type who gets close to people fast, too fast. She'd bring coffee, ask about your weekend, remember your dog's name. At first I thought she was just friendly, but I noticed a pattern. She'd collect little details from everyone, then use them later. Not in a mean way, but in a way that made you feel like she had something on you. She'd say, oh, I know you said you were stressed about your mom's surgery, so I covered for you with the boss. On the surface, nice. Underneath, a favor she could cash in later. I never gave her anything. I was polite but vague. I'd say, I had a good weekend, thanks, and then turn the conversation to someone else. She tried, she really did. She asked if I lived alone, if I had pets, if I was seeing anyone. I deflected every time. I could see the frustration building behind her smile. Last Friday, she came into work looking like the cat who got the goldfish. At lunch, she announced to the whole break room that I am married with 2 daughters, a dog, and a nice house. She said I play softball, kayak, and sometimes mountain climb. She said I'm on Facebook under a different name. The whole office turned and stared at me. I felt like someone had ripped my shirt open. My face went hot. I didn't say anything, I just stared at her. She was grinning, she thought she'd done something clever, she thought she'd cracked the code. I walked out. I went straight to HR, I told them everything. I said I had never discussed my personal life at work, that Melinda had deliberately snooped and exposed private information without my consent. I said I felt violated. The HR lady nodded, said she'd look into it. That was on a Friday. By Monday, Melinda was still there, but she was quiet. She didn't sit near me, she didn't make eye contact. I thought maybe it was over, but this office has a memory. My coworkers, the ones I'd actually become friends with over the years, they started asking questions, not nosy questions, just checking in. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I brushed them off. I didn't want to make it a bigger deal than it already was. Then came the project. Our boss, Mr. Thompson, is known for handing out important projects very rarely. He only gives them to people he trusts completely. Last month, he assigned a huge, time-consuming project to a coworker named Hank. Hank is a good guy. Quiet, competent, he's been there 8 years. The project was supposed to be his big break. Melinda had been eyeing that project for months. She'd been buttering up Mr. Thompson, bringing him coffee, staying late. When Hank got it instead, she was furious, and she knew exactly who to blame. The next week, I started noticing little things. Files moved, deadlines missed, emails that I supposedly sent but never did. I thought I was going crazy. Then one afternoon, Hank called me into his office. He looked pale. He said, "Melinda told me you had cancer." I froze. "What?" He said. "She told me you've been hiding it, that you have terminal cancer and that's why you're so private. She said you've been faking being healthy so you could get the project I was assigned. She said it was your way of getting sympathy." I couldn't breathe. "I don't have cancer. I never said I had cancer." But then I remembered a few months ago I had a routine scan. They found a small lump. It turned out to be benign. I told no one at work, not a single person. But I did tell my husband, and I made the mistake of mentioning it on a private Facebook post to close friends. Somehow Melinda had found that post. Maybe she hacked my account. Maybe one of my friends shared it, I don't know, but she took benign lump and turned it into terminal cancer. Hank looked relieved when I told him the truth, but then he said she's been spreading that rumor for 2 weeks. People are starting to believe it. They think you're lying about everything. That was when everything changed. I went back to HR. I told them about the rumor. I said Melinda was sabotaging my reputation. I demanded action. HR said they'd investigate, but it would take time. Meanwhile, the project kept going. Hank was struggling. He was a good worker, but Melinda had poisoned the well. Other team members were pulling back, worried about drama. I saw Hank's confidence crumbling. He started making mistakes. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. Then last week, Hank didn't show up to work. No call, no text. I called his cell, no answer. I called his wife. She said he was in the hospital. He'd had a breakdown, stress, anxiety, the weight of the project, and the constant lies. The doctor said he needed rest. He'd be out for at least a month. Mr. Thompson was livid. He called a meeting. He said the project was in jeopardy. He looked at me. He said, "You've been here 9 years. You're capable. Can you take over?" I said yes. Melinda's face went white. She knew what that meant. I was now in charge of the project she wanted, and I wasn't about to let her near it. I worked 50 hours that week. I slept at my desk twice. I called my husband and told him I'd be late. He said, "I knew you'd crack eventually." He was joking, but it stung. I wasn't cracking. I was fighting. By Friday, I had the project back on track. I'd reorganized the timeline, reassigned tasks, and scheduled daily check-ins. The team started trusting me again. But Melinda wasn't done. Monday morning, I found a letter on my desk. It was from Melinda, handwritten. It said, "You think you're so smart, hiding your whole life? I know more than you think. I know about your husband's affair. I know about your daughter's ADHD. I know everything. And if you don't back off this project, I'll make sure everyone knows." I stood there holding the letter in my shaking hands. My husband didn't have an affair. My daughter doesn't have ADHD. She was lying. But the fact that she was willing to make up such specific, hurtful things, I knew she was dangerous. I took the letter straight to HR. I also told them about the cancer rumor, the file tampering, everything. I said, "I want her fired. If she's not fired, I'm leaving, and I'll take this project with me." HR finally acted. They called Melinda in for a meeting. She denied everything, but I had proof. The letter, the email timestamps, the coworkers who had heard her spread the cancer rumor. They interviewed 5 people. 4 confirmed the rumor. Yesterday, Melinda was terminated. She walked out with a box of her things. She didn't look at me. She didn't say a word, but I saw her face. She was furious and scared. I thought it was over. I thought I could finally breathe. But then this morning I got an email from a burner account. It said, "You think you're safe? I have your address. I have your kids' school. I have everything. Watch your back." My heart stopped. I called the police. They said they'd patrol my neighborhood. They said to save the email. I told my husband. He wanted to drive to her house and confront her. I talked him down. Now I'm sitting at my desk trying to focus on the project, but my hands won't stop shaking. I don't know if she'll actually do something. I don't know if she's just bluffing, but I know one thing: I was right to keep my personal life separate. Because once someone like her gets a piece of you, they'll chew you up and spit you out. I thought I was overreacting when I first reported her to HR. I thought maybe I was being too paranoid, but now I know I was. Some people don't deserve to know who you really are, and I'll never make that mistake again. I never thought my best friend would try to destroy my marriage, but here we are. I met Sarah when I was 11 years old. My family had just moved to a new country and my sister-in-law introduced us. We became inseparable. She was at my wedding. She held my hand when I gave birth to my daughter. She was the godmother. I trusted her with everything. I'm 29 now. My husband is 31. We have a 2-year-old daughter. I work in an office from 9 to 2 and I usually take my break at a cafe near my husband's office. It's 5 minutes walking. Sometimes I mention to Sarah if I have to travel for work. Just casual stuff, nothing serious. Last week I had a work trip scheduled for Wednesday, but Tuesday night there was a red alert about the weather. A storm was coming. My work thing got canceled, so I stayed home with my daughter. My husband went out at 6 in the morning to close up his business and put up flood protection. By 7:30 he was back home making breakfast. It didn't start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We stayed inside all day. At 3, Sarah texted me. She asked if I was home already because the flooding was bad where I was supposed to travel. I texted back, "Home safe." We didn't go out until Friday. Saturday morning we went to our gym class together, same class every week. Afterwards, she told me we needed to talk in private. I thought maybe something was wrong with her. Maybe she needed to confide in me, so we went out to my car, parked in the lot. She took a deep breath. She said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out. Your kid was in the car." I froze. My whole body went cold. I couldn't breathe for a second. But then I remembered, Wednesday, I was at home with my husband and my baby. We hadn't left the house. We were together the entire day. I realized she was lying, but I didn't understand why. I asked her 3 times. "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She said yes 3 times. I asked what time. She said around 11. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked if she was absolutely sure. She launched into a whole description. She said my husband was kissing a gorgeous blonde woman, a Barbie doll type, in a car. She gave details, the color of the car, the street, the way he had his arm around her. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at her and said, "That's impossible. I was at home with him all day." We didn't leave the house. Her face changed. She went pale. She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm positive. He came home at 7:30 and we stayed inside until Friday." She started stammering. She said maybe she got the day wrong. Maybe it was another day, but I asked her again and she insisted it was Wednesday. She said she saw them during the red alert. The more she talked, the more holes appeared. I asked her why she would say this. She said she was just looking out for me. She said she wanted to protect me, but I could see the panic in her eyes. I drove home. I didn't say much. I told my husband what happened. He was confused, then angry. He said, "Why would she lie about something like that?" I didn't know, but I needed to find out. The next day I called her. I said I wanted to talk again. She agreed. We met at a coffee shop. I was calm. I asked her again about the details. She stuck to her story, so I said, "Okay, let's go to the police together. We'll file a report because if he's cheating, I need proof and you're my witness." She froze. She said, "No, I can't. I don't want to get involved." I said, "You're already involved. You came to me. You told me. Now help me." She started crying. She said she was sorry. She said she made it up. She said she didn't know why. I asked her why. She said she was jealous. She said I had the perfect life, a husband who loved me, a beautiful daughter, a good job. She said she was unhappy in her own life and she wanted to tear mine down. I sat there staring at her. 11 years of friendship. She wanted to ruin my marriage because she was jealous. I got up. I walked out. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I told my husband. He wanted to confront her, but I said no. It wasn't worth it. I haven't spoken to her since, and I don't think I ever will. I never thought my best friend would try to destroy my marriage. But what happened next made me realize that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most. I'm a 32-year-old emergency medicine doctor. My husband is a civil engineer. We've been together for 7 years, married for 4. I love him, but everything changed when we found out I couldn't have kids. About 14 months ago, my husband started pushing for a baby. He wanted it badly. I didn't. I was finally hitting my stride at work. We just bought our first condo and we weren't living a kid-friendly life. But I didn't tell him that. I was a coward. We'd never really disagreed before, so I kept my mouth shut and decided it wouldn't be a huge sacrifice. I could make it work. We got pregnant. I was miserable. Pregnancy didn't suit me. I wanted it to be over. I felt disconnected from everything, especially my pregnancy, so I sought out therapy. My therapist told me I was holding resentment against this baby because I was in a great spot in my career and was more worried about that than my unborn child. She was right. I worked on it. By month 6, I was really excited to have this baby. My husband and I were in a better place again. Then everything fell apart. Around 7 months, our baby was born as a stillbirth. I had horrible complications. The doctors told me my chances of ever getting pregnant again were incredibly low. I know I'm never getting pregnant. After the initial shock and the physical and emotional trauma, I honestly felt relief. I know that sounds terrible, but I did. I didn't want to go through that again. My husband was devastated. He grieved openly. I grieved too, but differently. I threw myself back into work. I started working longer shifts, taking on more cases. I needed to feel useful. I needed to be the doctor again, not the patient. A few months passed. We were in a routine. Then my husband's friend, a woman named Rachel, started coming around more often. Rachel was a friend from college. She and my husband had always been close, but after the stillbirth, she started showing up at our house with casseroles, texts, phone calls. I thought she was being supportive. I didn't think much of it. One evening, my husband sat me down. He looked nervous. He said, "I've been thinking about something. Rachel and I have been talking. She's willing to help us." I said, "Help us how?" He said, "She's willing to be a surrogate, but not just a surrogate. She wants us to impregnate her the natural way. She said it's more meaningful that way. She said we can all raise the child together." I stared at him. I said, "You want to sleep with Rachel?" He said, "It's not about sleeping with her. It's about our family. We can't have a baby without help. She's offering. She loves us." I said, "I'm your wife. You want to have sex with another woman to get me pregnant? That's not a surrogate. That's adultery." He got defensive. He said, "It's not adultery if you agree to it. We'd be doing it together. It's for our family." I asked him how long he and Rachel had been talking about this. He said a few weeks. He said she'd been very supportive and she'd offered to help even before he brought it up. She said, "If you ever need someone to carry your baby, I'm here." And then she suggested the natural method. I felt sick. I said, "She's been planting this in your head. She wants to sleep with you." He said, "No, she's just trying to help. She's a good friend." I said, "If she were a good friend, she wouldn't offer to sleep with my husband." We argued for hours. He kept saying it was the only way. He said we could still be together, we could still raise the child as our own. He said Rachel would be like a co-parent, not a threat. I asked him, what happens if she gets pregnant and decides she wants to keep the baby? What happens if she wants more? What happens if you fall in love with her? He didn't have answers. He just kept saying it would work out. I told him I needed space. I went to stay with my sister. I called Rachel. I said, what are you doing? She pretended to be confused. She said, I'm just trying to help. You two deserve a family. I said, you want to have sex with my husband? That's not help, that's manipulation. She got quiet. Then she said, he's not happy with you. He told me you're never home. He said you care more about your job than him. He said he feels alone. I'm just offering him what he needs. I hung up. I called my husband. I said, she told me you said you're not happy with me. Is that true? He hesitated. He said, I've been lonely. You work all the time. After the baby, you shut me out. I said, I was grieving too. I coped differently, but I never stopped loving you, and I never went to another man and offered to sleep with him. He started crying. He said, I'm sorry, I don't know what I was thinking. I just wanted a family so badly. I came home the next day. He had blocked Rachel on everything. He said he quit the hobby group where they met. He said he was willing to do anything to fix this. He agreed to marriage counseling. We went to counseling for 6 months. We worked through the grief, the resentment, the loneliness. He admitted he had been emotionally cheating by confiding in Rachel about our marriage problems. I admitted I had been using work as an escape. We slowly rebuilt trust. But I never forgot the way he looked at me when he said we should impregnate his friend. That we was a lie. He was ready to choose her over me. And even though we're still married today and we're in a better place, I will never fully trust him the way I did before. Because once someone shows you they're willing to cross that line, you never unsee it. After everything with my husband, I thought I'd seen it all. But then I read about a man who cheated on his husband with his ex-wife at their son's birthday party. I'm a 27-year-old man. My husband, Peter, is 37. We've been married for 3 years, together for 6. He has an ex-wife, Allison, who he divorced a year before we met. We have a son, Jack, who we adopted after we got married. He's 7 now. I love him like my own because he is. I knew Peter was bisexual. I had no problem with it. I had no problem with Allison either. But I did have a problem with his family. They're a bit homophobic. They're always telling Peter he should get back together with Allison. They never accepted me. 2 weeks ago, we were at his family's town for Jack's birthday. We wanted to spend it as family. My mother-in-law decided it would be a great idea to invite Allison. She arrived in the middle of the party. I didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so I stayed quiet. I spent all my time with Jack, playing with him and his cousins at his request. When it was time to cut the cake, I noticed Allison and Peter weren't there. I went inside and looked for them around the house. I found them in Peter's old bedroom. They were taking their clothes off. I stood there in shock. For a moment, I couldn't move, then I left. I went back to celebrating Jack's birthday. Part of me wanted to scream and cry, but I refused to make Jack's birthday about me. We cut the cake, we opened presents. People were already leaving when Allison and Peter came back. Peter took me aside. He started saying I shouldn't have cut the cake without him. He said it was disrespectful. I stared at him and said, I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants. He got quiet. I took Jack and left the house. We went back to the hotel. I put Jack to bed, then I sat in the bathroom and cried. Peter came back an hour later. He knocked on the door. I didn't let him in. He texted me. I can explain. It was a mistake. She came on to me. I was weak. I didn't respond. The next morning, I took Jack and drove home. I stayed with my sister for a week. Peter called and texted nonstop. He said his family had pressured him. He said Allison had been stalking him online. He said he would do anything to fix it. I told him I needed space. I said, you didn't just cheat on me. You did it in your childhood bedroom at our son's birthday party while your homophobic family watched. You humiliated me. He said, I know, I'm so sorry. After a week, I agreed to meet him. We talked. He said he'd cut off his family completely. He said he'd block Allison everywhere. He said he'd go to therapy. I wasn't sure I believed him. But then Allison showed up at my work. She said, I know you're trying to take Peter away from his family. But you should know that I'm pregnant. It's his. My world stopped. I said, what? She said, we've been seeing each other for months. This wasn't just the party. He's been lying to you. I called Peter right in front of her. I put it on speaker. I said, did you sleep with Allison before the party? He stammered. He said, no, I swear that's the only time. I said, she says she's pregnant. She says it's been going on for months. He started crying. He said, she's lying. I swear to God. It was one time, one stupid mistake. She's trying to ruin us. Allison was smirking. I hung up. I said, get out of my workplace or I'll call security. She left. But the next day I received photos in the mail. Photos of Peter and Allison together in various states of undress. The dates on the photos were from months ago. He had been lying. I confronted him. He finally admitted it. He said he'd been seeing her for about 8 months. He said he felt guilty, but she kept pursuing him. He said his family encouraged it. He said he was weak. I filed for divorce. It's been 3 months. The divorce is almost finalized. I have custody of Jack because Peter willingly signed over parental rights. He said he didn't want to fight me. He said he was ashamed. As for Allison's pregnancy, it turned out she wasn't pregnant. She lied to get me to leave him. But it didn't matter, the damage was already done. I still can't believe I trusted him. I can't believe I let his family's homophobia get to me. I can't believe I stayed quiet at that birthday party. But I'm glad I didn't make it about me. Jack deserved a happy birthday. He still does. And now I'm raising him alone. But I'm not alone. I have my sister, I have my friends. And I have a peace that I didn't have when I was married to a man who was never fully mine. Some people don't deserve your forgiveness. Some people don't deserve a second chance. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and never look back. But not every betrayal comes from a spouse. Sometimes it comes from a coworker. And sometimes the person you least expect is the one who tries to tear your life apart for no reason. I've worked in the same office for 9 years. I'm notoriously private. I never talk about my home life at work. It's not that I'm ashamed, I just believe in separation. I have twin daughters, a husband, a dog, a nice house. I play softball, I kayak, I mountain climb, but none of my coworkers knew any of that. They knew me as Ali, a shortened version of my name, and that's it. I've made great friendships at work, don't get me wrong. We talk about hobbies, movies, current events. But when someone asks me about my weekend, I redirect. I say something vague like, oh, just hung out with friends. I never mention my husband or kids. It's not that I'm hiding them, I'm protecting them. I've seen what happens when people at work know too much. The gossip, the judgment, the way people use personal info as leverage. Anyway, a year ago we hired Melinda. She seemed nice at first. Friendly, outgoing, the type who wants to know everyone's business. But she took it to another level. She spent weeks getting close to people, but not because she cared, because she was collecting information. She wanted dirt, she wanted to have something to hold over people's heads. I kept my guard up, I never gave her anything. She tried to ask me about my weekend, my hobbies, my family. I always deflected, I could tell it frustrated her. She'd give me this tight smile and move on. Then last Friday, Melinda came into work looking like the cat who got the goldfish. At lunch, she announced to everyone that I'm married with 2 daughters, a dog, and a nice house. She said I play softball, kayak, and mountain climb. She even said I'm on Facebook using a shortened version of my name and my married name. I was stunned. I didn't know how she found out. I never talk about any of that. She must have used White Pages or some other site to put the pieces together. I felt violated. I felt exposed. I went straight to my boss. I said, Melinda has been digging into my personal life. She announced it to everyone at lunch. I didn't give her permission to share any of that. My boss sighed. He said I'll talk to her, but I knew it wouldn't do much. Melinda had already done the damage. The next week, things got worse. My boss, let's call him Hank, was assigned this huge project. It was the kind of project that could make or break your career. Time-consuming, important, high visibility. Hank never hands out those projects unless he's absolutely sure you can handle it. And he chose me. Melinda was furious. She thought she deserved it. She started spreading rumors around the office that I couldn't handle it because of my family responsibilities. She said I had twin daughters at home, that I'd be distracted, that I'd probably drop the ball. She said Hank only gave it to me because he was going easy on me. I overheard her talking to another coworker. She said she's got kids, she's got a husband, she's got a dog. She can't possibly give this project the attention it needs. Hank is making a mistake. I didn't confront her. I went to Hank and told him what she was saying. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I know about your family. I've known for years. I also know you've never let it affect your work. You're one of the most dedicated people I have. Don't let her get to you. I asked him how he knew about my family. He said, I did a background check when you were promoted. It's standard, but I never shared it because it's not relevant. Your work speaks for itself. That made me feel better, but the damage was already spreading. Melinda had planted a seed of doubt in some people's minds. A few coworkers started asking me if I was sure I could handle the project. They said, no offense, but with 2 kids at home, isn't it a lot? I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, I've been handling it for 9 years, I'll be fine. Then about a month later, Hank got some bad news. He was diagnosed with cancer. It was early stage, but he needed treatment. He told me privately, he said, I'm handing the project over to you completely. I trust you, you've earned it. Melinda found out. She saw an opportunity. She went to HR and claimed that I was exploiting Hank's illness to get ahead. She said I was manipulating him because he was vulnerable. She said I was hiding my personal life because I was ashamed of my family, and that proved I wasn't a team player. HR called me in. I explained everything. I told them I had never hidden my family, I just kept my work and personal life separate. I told them Melinda had been snooping and spreading rumors. I showed them the timeline. She announced my personal life to everyone, then started undermining me when I got the project. HR investigated. They interviewed other coworkers. A few of them came forward and said Melinda had been gossiping and trying to turn people against me. One of them even said she'd offered to spy on me to find out more about my personal life. In the end, Melinda was reprimanded. She was put on a performance improvement plan. She stopped talking to me, but the damage was done. I felt paranoid. I started locking my desk. I stopped eating lunch in the break room. I stopped being friendly with anyone new. But you know what? I finished that project. I finished it early, actually. And Hank, even while undergoing treatment, sent me a personal email saying he was proud of me. Melinda still works there, but she keeps her distance. She knows she was caught. And I learned something important. You don't have to share your whole life with people at work. You don't owe them your story. Your privacy is yours to protect. And if someone tries to take that from you, you fight back. You report them. You don't let them win. Because your life, your real life, the one outside that office, is worth protecting.